we are very lucky right now to be joined by the writer and scholar Timo Daum. So maybe we can invite you, Timo, welcome. Pick up a mic right there, and we'll have you take a seat on the left.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Super.
This side?
Oh, we'll take you to the couch so we can all fit. In fact.
Yes.
So,
okay. Perfect.
Right here.
That's the best spot. Yes.
Okay.
So
Hello.
we just had this super interesting panel. Thank you so much for that. And now we've been just trying to process what you were saying, but now we can ask the questions directly to you.
Okay, shoot.
So, so in case anyone is joining us now live and missed the panel, could you very briefly say your name and introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Timo Daum. I'm a book author and scholar, and digital capitalism, the critique of digital capitalism is my thing, so to say.
Very cool. So, I mean, I don't know if, Lil Internet, you want to just start with the question that we were just trying to work through.
Which
is capitalism itself?
We can start with a big one.
Okay.
Would you consider global finance and capitalism itself as a form of artificial intelligence?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. One of my books is called The Artificial Intelligence of Capital.
Yeah.
And that's kind of maybe twisting the idea, because what I wanted to express by that is I try to ground the discussion we have especially in popular culture about NAI, one or several, like taking over the planet or whatever, and ground it and tell a little bit the story that artificial intelligence has become, let's say, like a slave or a servant of capital, rather than the new king or the I don't know how to say that, like the figure we have to fear.
Yes.
You know. But that's a very interesting idea. If capital itself is somehow has a life of its own, and if you study Karl Marx, and I'm very much inspired by Karl Marx. Often he describes capital, for example, as a liquid, as a thing that's constantly reinventing itself. It's almost like if it had life itself. And there's one part where he talks about the automatic subject, and he's not talking about the worker or whatever, human beings, but about capital itself. Like in some parts of his work, Karl Marx, he really how do you say that? Like capital becomes alive, something like zombie almost, with its own like not alive but still but also not dead, something like that. So that would be my answer.
Right.
So I think that analogy kind of makes sense. We were talking about like cordyceps or these kinds of biological things that invade the brain and then cause the subjects to then act according to its will. So as humans, we sort of have to organize ourselves that way according to capital.
Yeah, in that sense, you could say Karl Marx is a science fiction author because his description of like we construct our society, but it is still hidden from us, and we're like marionettes and puppets.
Yeah.
But there is no but we ourselves are the ones that are maneuvering, like. How do you say that? Like operating.
Agents, yes.
We're operating the puppets that we ourselves are. That's a science fiction idea.
Yeah, totally. I think Kate Crawford has a great diagram of that as well. That's really been realized by the avatar, right? Because we really do get to have a digital presence that have marionette strings attached to it.
I mean, Kate Crawford from the AI Institute?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a question about this change from Web 2 to Web 3. Can I ask it, and then maybe we can come, or do you have the question that would, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I also want to ask, you've brought a copy of your book. I'm so happy to see. So we will, I think, talk about this agile capitalism as well.
Okay.
So maybe we can tie it all together. We're very interested in this transition from Web 2, where the individual profile is like the subject is individuated, and you are an entrepreneurial self. You have to use yourself, your life force, to gain as much attention as possible. You have to be profitable in all forms of life. But we're switching now to a Web3, or people are getting a little suspicious, at least in the West or the US, EU stack. We're a little suspicious of Web2 platforms. Oh, we do still use them, and they're still very much a problem. But maybe we're starting to be in these Web3 spaces, these Discord spaces. Maybe we're in crypto spaces. We have avatars or whatnot.
Or even Telegram, group chats, something not indexed and where you are not the product, essentially.
Right. And you could think, oh, that's so liberating because now I don't have to be responsible for my online self. I can be like a little bit more separated. But I wonder, especially in the time of agile capitalism, where all business seems to be organizing around a certain set of principles, what are, like, maybe we could use this as an entree into talking about this book slightly. Like, what are you concerned with right now with the way you see like entrepreneurial world or startup world or new forms of businesses organizing? In the one sense, we're moving away from the individual profile, but in another sense, we are really optimizing for an agile type business structure.
Yeah, very interesting question. Let me start with an analogy I used before in the talk, where I described how industrial capitalism created the fabric, like the very place where it gathered machinery, raw matter, and the workforce. That was like the cathedrals of industrial capitalism, as I called it. And this was like a specific infrastructure for the exploitation of the workforce, which very much relied on everyone being there in time at 6 o'clock in the morning, the sirens, etc. We all have heard of that, maybe. And that was necessary for this for the conveyor belt and for the industrial production. In the, let's say, digital capitalism, which is mostly the production of new information and services, more and more the same location and the same being at the same spot at the same time is no longer necessary because networks can facilitate that. And I think the pandemic has shown us and has like dragged us much deeper into this situation where we all became, at least the ones that didn't have to go out to work but could work from home, for example, that we have become a part of a worldwide network of production, of information production, but still totally isolated selves. And in this book where I talk about agility, the basic idea is that the agile principles from software development that were very successful in the last 20 years. They have become the central paradigm of software development.
Could you summarize those actually? Because for
what,
those who don't know, I know there's a few core principles.
The agile software paradigm basically says we should go away from long-term planning, hierarchies, a strict plan, a separation of different tasks, etc. But come to a more like group work, circular process, refixing the goals, like a circular economy, so to say, and being more able to resilient and able to react to changes, for example. And this has become the dominating paradigm in software development. But I think, and the pandemic has proven this point, I think, these principles have evaporated into the entire society, this agile self that comes with these principles, that you are, I don't know, very flexible. You can communicate much more. You don't obey orders, but think for yourself. You are a networking person, etc. All these Tugenden in German. How would you translate that to English? That's like characteristics or of an individual. They have changed in comparison to the industrial worker, and the pandemic has thrown us very, very fast into this agility, and resilience is a very important term in this context too. The German sociologist from Freiburg, he says, Ulrich Bröckling, he says resilience is one of the core there it is again, Tugenden of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Like qualifications the individual has to bring to the market to succeed. As opposed to being in time, being able to obey orders, fit in, etc., which were proprieties you needed in the previous etape, so to say.
Of course, there are pros and cons to that. I mean, we know with climate change, resilience has positive and negative connotations. We know I come from old school legacy magazine media. You come from video production and music production, and we've seen our industries totally collapse over the past 10 years with streaming and with digital publications. And so resilience has been this necessary thing. But it's hard on the individual because you have to constantly be competing, not just like within your field, but constantly changing what exactly your field is. It's a very, very demanding place to be.
And the demand of change and like to adapt to the new situation, lockdown, Zoom, installing Zoom, etc. It totally relied on the individual. It was you were sitting at home, you had to get this working for global capitalism, so to say.
Totally.
So the change management was totally on the individual side, and we all, let's say, like humanity as workforce for capitalism has proven that it is very resilient, very agile.
Yeah.
And
Additionally, it might be the wrong approach to take with something like climate change, where it's just like, we'll figure it out now, like together, we'll like find a way.
Right, instead you need actually planning.
Right, instead of trying to mitigate or making the harder long-term sort of making choices that are immediately maybe difficult or challenging, but long-term would have good benefits. It seems like a very trusting in the human ingenuity to figure it out, and also you get to ignore the longer-term effects.
There's also a suspicious, I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but a suspicious positivity affect that's always accorded to the idea of agile, right? It's always like, yeah, we're doing it together and it's great and you should be on board. There's not a lot of space for a kind of critique or a negativity or a resistance to it. And I think that's very much the startup mentality as well.
And there's no space for long-term planning.
No space for long-term planning.
And long-term planning maybe is something we lack in this society and in the workplace too. Because I mean, I conducted a lot of interviews, and most people embrace these new paradigms in software development and in agencies, etc. But sometimes you hear also, okay, but we're losing the long-term perspective, like 2 weeks, a fortnight. That's our goal. That's our goal.
Yeah.
And afterwards we can fix the next one. That's like very, very short-sighted.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I am curious. What are you going to ask? Or
if it's a continuation.
No. You go. Okay.
Well, I was wondering earlier this year you were part of a talk called "The Religion of Digital Capitalism," and I mean, these beliefs in data solutionism, the trust we have in models, in scientism, and what Neil Postman called way back in 1992, the technopoly. I mean, this kind of thinking bothers me a bit. I think you have concerns about it as well. But on the other side right now, we also see, on the polar, kind of the opposite side, we see these paranoid conspiracy theories, manifestation-style capitalist delusion, and like woo-woo, anti-vax sort of fetishism of the natural. And how do we, my question is, how do we calibrate between this seeming polarity in trusting facts and data and science, but also avoiding the kind of magical thinking that carries its own very dangerous pitfalls, as we've seen?
Wow, very interesting question. I mean, I think what we should agree on, I think, is what digital capitalism, what Silicon Valley and techno-solutionism, etc., with all that downside has proven to us, to humanity in the last 2 decades, is that data, and it's totally counterintuitive, has become the main resource for humanity. And I mean, who would have thought that our activity, I don't know, my farts, to put it like in such a way, would be of any interest for anyone on the planet. But now let's have a look at the pandemic. From sequencing the genome, understanding the virus, the propagation, controlling the outbreaks, contact tracing, tracking movements of people, to development of a vaccine, distributing it, etc. That's all data science. So this has become a powerful tool of humanity, I think, and we're only beginning to grasp the deepness of this potential. But those who have shown us the potential, basically, I don't know who said that. Maybe it was Shoshana Zuboff who said all these like the best minds and the best data in the world, they're basically used to predict what we will buy next.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is this malfunction or this delusion or this totally, we've taken the wrong term, and we should go back and discover data as a common resource. And if we're able to do that, and the pandemic has shown some glimpses of worldwide collaboration in the scientific community, for example. I mean, a friend of mine who works at Robert Koch-Institut told me that it's like in almost real time, you could, like, worldwide scientific community could get hold of the sequencing results of certain at incredible speed and worldwide collaboration. That could be nice if that would be the standard operation and not an Ausnahme, like a.
So long as it's not going towards okay, what do you want to buy next? Then we should embrace some of these systems, but just be wary of like what the end goal is. I love the comment you had during the panel where you said, the goal of a factory was always to not just make cars, but to make its owners and investors wealthy. And okay, that was a problem already when it was a car, but now, because the worker would be exploited, etc. But now we have our social spaces, which are there primarily to make the owners and investors wealthy. And so what's in the balance is actually our social well-being, our social space, our commons. And that's really, that's a dangerous place to be. So.
Yeah, but the analogy goes even further, because the car, on the one hand, has been, I don't know, it has brought a lot of mobility and freedom to its customers, but also has marked and defined our social space, which is our cities and our landscape, etc. And today, I mean, we're fighting for the end of the combustion engine, and more than that, I mean, we want to we reclaim our cities from the car infrastructures.
So true.
And if you study the history of the automobility, I mean, it was people like Ford, etc., who were producing these cars. They needed desperately the infrastructures for them to run on. They created like suburbia, this image of move out of town and your car will take you to work. You can commute. I mean, this was an ideal that was created in the 50s so that it could be implemented and cars be sold to the families, and not only one, but 2 or 3 for other family members, etc. So the parallel to this drive to create profit on the digital platforms that invades and infects, you could say, our social spaces that these platforms have become. It already happened in the social spaces that are our cities with Motordome.
Oh, that is so fascinating. I have to say, I never once considered that the suburbs were, built up or marketed as a way to sell the car. That the cars needed the suburbs in order to, or exactly. The car, Ford, et cetera, needed the suburbs in order to sell the cars. And so cars created our social space. Just like now, again, we have these platforms which are then driving our social space. And now we're rejecting cars. We're at a moment where we're literally rejecting cars in our social spaces. But of course, our social spaces being online, there's a different kind of capital extraction that's happening.
Yeah, and that Harald Welzer, the German, I don't know if he's a sociologist, but he's a very interesting person, very debatable person, especially in sustainable energy and transportation. He talks of mental infrastructures, because one result of the car, for example, and also the social platforms like Facebook, is that our that they also construct mental infrastructures. We come to the point where we say, oh no, we cannot abolish the car. It's necessary. It has been there. I don't know. We get like physical symptoms if someone wants to take away something which is creating a lot of pain. That's a mental infrastructure. It's very, very difficult to overcome.
That's a fascinating point. That's true. So someone says, you can't take away Facebook. How would I communicate with my friends? And we saw when there was, at least in Berlin, where we live, there was a big, I guess all the Facebook platforms went dark for a couple hours on a Monday. And people realized they couldn't touch base with their friends or their coworkers because no one has anyone else's phone number. And so it was this like inconceivable thing that like Facebook would go down.
You realize how many platforms you were dependent on were all centralized also in this one place, which kind of goes to a question, if I may. I mean, do you have any thoughts about how advances in AI or machine learning might affect monopolization, either challenge it or increase the scale of it that we've already seen in recent years in the 21st century?
I mean, we were briefly debating this on the panel too. If you look at who is investing money in research in AI, who's able to attract the most advanced talents, who has amassed the greatest amounts of data, which is very, very interesting for data scientists, of course, you get an effect of self-fulfilling prophecies. The ones that have the most data, the most money, that's digital platforms. They can create the most interesting research environment for the best scientists, and they create the best results. As a famous researcher on genetics once put it, if you get a machine that's 10 times faster, if you get a data set that's 10 times more accurate, it's like if you have a microscope and you turn it from 10 times augmentation to 100. You're looking at the same sample, the same data, so to say, but you discover a whole different world. So you can look much deeper in it. And I see very much the players in AI are the typical the behemoths of digital capitalism. I see a monopolization tendency galore there. Yeah,
I think there's no way around it. I think we don't have too much more time. So I want to ask you before we get cut off, if you are, I mean, you have this habit of publishing about a book a year at this point. So I wonder if there is something else in the works or what your next project is.
Next project is like maybe too far away, but this year I edited a book together with Sabine Nuss from Dietz Verlag, and the title is, let me see if I can translate it in real time to English, The Invisible Hand of the Plan. And the subtitle is something about control and in digital capitalism. And you mentioned the planning thing before. The idea of the book is just one sentence, that today big data has become a planning capacity comparable to the socialist planning, but even going beyond that in an automatic way. And it is in the hand of the platforms, and that creates maybe a new form of I don't know, like planned or predicted form of capitalism. That's what we are discussing in this book. The invisible hand of the plan.
Invisible hand of the plan. Okay, fantastic.
Although isn't the level of complexity needed to make accurate predictions still somewhat unknown? How complex do we need to? How complex of the data? What scale, like fractally, do we need to know to get really accurate predictions?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on models and our belief in it, or if we give too much trust in them, but maybe we'll have to save that for another time.
For another time. In any case, any books published in English? I think not yet. Yes? No. So that must happen. It really has to happen. I've seen. I am a slow German reader, but yes. Well, I think I just have to read it in German. In any case, Timo Daum, thank you so much for joining us here in the live studio and for your contributions to the.
Thanks for your great questions.
Cool. Okay. So we are now headed to. There's two options. There is on the global stage, misreading human emotions, and then on the main stage, the last for today on the main stage, the Schaufler Lab TU, Technical Universität Dresden, has artist Christian Cosmas Meyer and Anton Ginsberg talking a bit about artists in AI. So
breakout room button.
Breakout room button, and we'll see you after these sessions. Thank you.